You start.
I'm Joe,
And I'm Marge.
and let's spend the rest of our days together.
I think we should. We've been
Yes,
married almost 60 years.
it's been a great ride, too.
We've had to compromise on a lot of things. We came from pretty different cultures.
That's the way our whole marriage has been, though. It's give and take and give and take and give and take until it's been great. Couldn't have been better, I don't think. I wouldn't change it a minute.
He wears the pants, and sometimes he has to remind me.
And I agree with that. I wouldn't change anything.
I wouldn't either.
It's just been hunky-dory. Now, does that say we don't have disagreements and stuff like that? Yeah, but we know
Us?
we know we know how to overcome that. Just kiss and make up. and that's about the size of it too. First given name is Joe. My nickname is Red, and that's all I get. And Menius is the last name.
Okay, my name is Marge Menius, and I was born in 1936 in St. Paul, Minnesota, in 36 degree below zero weather, I'm told.
We lived when I was I was born next to my grandpa Menius's farm, and we lived there for till I got up 3 or 4 years old, something like that, and then we moved. But my maternal grandparents were in another county, and we used to travel there and stay with my grandpa Yow, Y-O-W. And it was a beautiful experience when we go there. My dad moved around quite a bit, but we lived in Concord. That was our home base, where the family grew up. But we moved to McCaddenville, York, South Carolina, Kannapolis, and several other places.
During World War II, I was, 5 when it started. And I had terrible impressions because, from a child perspective, Germans were frightening, Japanese even more so. The radio was always talking about the war. The newspapers were full of pictures. In second grade, we were taken to City Museum on a field trip, and we saw war booty that our boys had captured from the Germans, and there was a Nazi flag with dried blood on it. And I thought that Germans had purple blood, and we Irish had red blood. So it was traumatic. The shape of the Nazi helmet still scares me. When I see the shape of that helmet, I get scared. I had uncles in the war.
My maternal grandparents, they lived in another county, and they were poor farmers, and but they had plenty to eat because they had pigs, cows, everything that supported that. So they weren't hungry, but they didn't have a lot of money.
In retrospect, when I look back at my childhood, I realize how fortunate I was because I had wonderful parents. And I was raised in Omaha, Nebraska. Both my parents were from there. And my father had been transferred by Cudahy to Minnesota and got me, but I was back in Nebraska at age 3 weeks. So my childhood was just idyllic. My father was a city fireman, and my mom was a homemaker, and I'm the oldest of 5 children.
We made our own toys. If Santa didn't bring them to us, we made our own. Usually trucks and cars and items. Just take a saw and saw it out, and we had access to that. And that's kind of the way we enjoyed it. And then the bicycles came along, and when they came along, that was a little different.
We had every toy imaginable. We didn't have a car. We didn't get a car till I was 18. But my friends' families didn't either. We lived in the city, and It wasn't expected. Um, I loved outdoors. I would ride my bicycle all over town. The freedom that we had was amazing. Now, when I was little, I rode my bike all over the place. I caught a bus with my girlfriends and went downtown, played house in the furniture departments of the department stores. We just had total freedom. When I was 11 and 12, I would walk to the stables and rent a horse and ride all over the countryside, ride through farmers' fields and everything. And it was just so loosely structured, no helmets, total freedom. Your girlfriends and you are just galloping through the countryside. And the kids today can't do that. So I was lucky. I grew up in a wonderful time. When I was 4, I wanted to go to kindergarten so bad. So they sent me and they took me. So I spent grade school at St. Philip Neri School in Omaha, high school at Holy Name High School, 1 year of college in Omaha at Duchesne, and then the rest of my education came in my middle age.
I went to Hartselle High School and graduated there in 1950.
Being the oldest of 5 was great. I have one younger sister and I had 3 brothers. And I felt put upon. I had to do dishes. I complained vociferously about that. And my brother had to dry, I had to wash. We got in trouble because we sang songs till the dishwasher water got greasy. But it was a great thing to be the oldest.
Korean War just started up, and rather than be a ground pounder, I decided it might be a better idea for me to join the Air Force. Joined the Air Force and was sent to Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas. And that's where I went through basic training. From there, they gave us all kinds of tests and this, and I qualified to go to radar school. And radar was a new thing on the market then. So they sent me to Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi, and I finished radar school there. And from there, they sent me to Omaha, Nebraska, in a new radar base. The reason it was very important and meaningful for me, they were just installing radar bases across the northern part of the United States. And so that's where I spent the next 4 years there in Omaha. Didn't move another base then. Went TDY for some additional training at certain times, but that was my home base, Omaha, Nebraska. 789th ACNW Squadron, and that stands for Aircraft Control and Warning Station. And the reason they put us there was the Strategic Air Command was based there, and that's where they filtered in, and they were afraid that maybe that might be in trouble at some point along the line.
My work history started with babysitting when I was pretty young. I got a job at a drugstore at age 15, and I sold makeup and jewelry, and I also worked behind the soda fountain. And that was my first professional work. After high school, I got a job at the Union Pacific Railroad. After my year of college, I got a job with the Omaha Police Commissioner. And then I got married to a boy I met at the drugstore when I was serving Coca-Cola and ice cream to him.
Oh, that was a beautiful story.
He's changed it a bit.
No, I haven't, but I'll go ahead and tell you about it. We had to take a carrier bus from the base down to the street, the city buses, and we were standing on the corner there, and Don and he smoked, and I don't think I was smoking at that time, but anyhow, he said, "I'm going to run over here to the drugstore and get a pack of cigarettes," and I said, "Well, hurry up." So he ran across there, and
I was at the drugstore and I looked out the window on a Sunday morning, standing by the door, and a friend of mine was standing across the street at the bus stop. Both these boys were Air Force, and with him was this redheaded guy. And so he came running across the street to buy cigarettes, and I said, Don, who's the cute redhead? He goes right back, brings him across to the drugstore. I couldn't even look at him. I was so embarrassed. But I thought he was very cute. And I still think so.
He came back and he said, there's a girl over there I'd like to meet you. And I said, well, I'd like to meet her too. Let's go. So we went right back over there and got her name. And her name was Margaret Kelly. And so I got her phone number.
Well, I wasn't allowed to date him because we didn't know his family. And so finally, I talked my parents into letting me bring him home for dinner. And so I guess our first date were at my house. He'd come for dinner, and he had this southern accent, which at the time I thought was gorgeous. And it gradually developed until we were allowed to take the bus to the movies and developed from there.
They treated me royally. I understood from her that they were fighting it, but when I got there, it was they cooked a nice dinner, and as I started to eat and drink coffee, I had a French cuff shirt on, and I stuck it across the way there, and it got soaked with the coffee. The French cuff did.
We dated for about 4 years.
I always found Marge as being articulate and a good date, nice date. She loved to go to movies. She loved to do things like that, and that's what we did. Actually, we'd walk to the movies. There's a movie house close by Florence, and we just sometimes didn't have the money on the bus, so we just walked back or walk over. So it was give us time to hold hands and walk down the street.
Remember when we went dancing at Peony Park and I had that gorgeous dress that floated?
And you were beautiful, and you were mine.
And so Red and I went to the Royal Ballroom for a dance, and I did what the book said, glided down the steps into the Royal Ballroom with my full circle dress, feeling great until I tripped and went sailing across the Royal Ballroom floor on my stomach.
And you slipped and fell right broadside on the dance floor, and it was embarrassing. I finally disowned her a little bit.
Didn't even act like he knew me.
She's not mine. But not kidding, just a little bit. But I helped her up and got her out of there. But it was embarrassing to her, and it didn't bother me because it was kind of like a laugh. She had friends there also saw her, so they got a little kick out of it.
Well, his friends all called him Red, so I called him Red.
One of your family said, why do they call you Red, or what's that?
Michael, when he was 5.
What did he say?
So my little brother said, why do we call you Red? And he said, well, because I have red hair. And my 5-year-old brother said, well, then why don't they call me Brown F. Kelly? We were married. I was 19. He was 22. It was July 2nd. No air conditioning in churches in 1955. And Red broke into a sweat.
And that sweat was just pouring off of me. And I said, Bill, you have a handkerchief? And he said, yeah, I do. And I said, well, can I borrow it? And I have it. No, you can't have that handkerchief.
And his best man tore his handkerchief in half and shared it. And we still have our half.
And I said, well, he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do the next best thing. I'll just tear this in two, give you half, and I have the half. And that was then I could wipe the sweat.
We've had to compromise on a lot of things. We came from pretty different cultures. And so food was major. I had never used a frying pan so much until after we got married. And
I had never boiled so many things. She learned a lot of the Southern food, but I don't think she had ever had grits or gravy for breakfast or sausage and eggs and stuff like that.
and we compromise. Sometimes we have rice and sometimes we have mashed potatoes. A lot of times we have fish and sometimes we have steak, like Omaha steak.
We were newlyweds, didn't know any better.
Our first 2 years of marriage were spent in North Carolina, in his hometown of Concord. I got a job in a cotton mill, took a 50% cut in pay from what I was making at the Union Pacific, worked in the office, and we stayed there 2 years, and we got our oldest daughter, Mary, in Charlotte. After we left North Carolina, we moved to Herculaneum, Missouri. And Red got a job in an Omaha company as district rep. Then we moved to Cape Girardeau, and we got our second child, John. And then we moved to Crestwood. And while we were in Crestwood, Mark was born in 1962, and David was born in 1965.
I worked for Industrial Chemical Labs out of Omaha, and St. Louis was my territory.
We were living in North Carolina, and Mary was a baby, and we took her home to Omaha for Christmas. And while we were in Omaha, Red was offered a job with Industrial Chemical to be a salesperson for the Missouri Territory. Well, that was halfway between our two homes, and so we called it our Missouri Compromise, and we've been real happy in St. Louis.
St. Louis was a real good market. I had a couple of predecessors that didn't make it down here, and I got calling on customers and created a rapport with the customer, and from then on, I'd add on a couple extra every so often, and before I knew it, I had a good territory.
I was so thrilled to have a teaching career because that's what I'd wanted from the time I was young, but then I married young. So when the kids were young, I got to go back to school and get a bachelor's and then a master's and then finally a doctorate. And I was hired by Narings Hall to teach high school, and it was just a wonderful place to be. It was like a gift, a dream I'd given up and then got after all. So the girls were wonderful, and all of them were motivated. That was nice, to teach kids that were so motivated that the grade book was full. You didn't have empty spaces where assignments weren't turned in. The atmosphere was friendly and loving, and it was just a wonderful gift to have a job like that when I never thought I would. We were in North Carolina, and there was this wonderful Chinese restaurant in Charlotte. That was fun.
Until my best man's father decided to take us over there. Bill Ross, take us to the Chinese garden, and he decided to bring a bottle of White Lightning. And I don't know
a mason jar of White Lightning.
But and Margaret got into it.
It was the funniest sensation. One of the mores in North Carolina, Southern Baptist country, was that nice people didn't drink. Well, excuse me, my parents drank.
And she drank. And
so
she drank.
No, I didn't. So I was going to show them that I could handle it. I took one drink of White Lightning and my feet literally lifted off the floor.
Her tongue was like that.
I didn't. That was it. My feet lifted off the floor. One funny story about our trips to our homes. We were back in North Carolina, and Red's dad had some land, and on that land were Christmas trees. However, Uncle John Henry's land adjoined his father's land, and the better Christmas trees were on Uncle John Henry's land. So we took our kids and we chopped down the tree. And we go to Red's grandparents' home, and who's there? Uncle John Henry.
Chopped down his Christmas tree.
All of our kids were just really good. They weren't any problems. I was real proud of David when he broke the window at the rectory at our parish and with a baseball, and he went right to the door and admitted it. They all did well in school. Our older two competed like crazy for grades.
Well, I'm proud of every one of them. They excelled, every one. Mary went out and was studied for the pharmacy. John went into the medical field also. Mark was in computer science. And David's a school teacher. And they all have done fairly decently. Put the kids in the back of the station wagon and take off and go to Ocean Isles. And we'd go down in a station wagon, stay probably one night on the road going down and one night on the road coming back. But we'd go down and take $100 in those days and a credit card, and we'd have one hell of a time.
Okay, Red and I love to travel, and we've been a lot of places in this world. But the Greyhound bus trip takes the cake.
That was fun. It was one of the best things we ever did. There was a magazine, AARP, I guess, or something, in one of the magazines. They advertised that Greyhound was, for a certain amount of money, you could go anywhere in the United States. Marge came home from school one day, and I said, Margaret, this was after I retired. I said, we're going to travel to the United States. She said, how are we going? I said, Greyhound bus. A Greyhound bus. and I said, yes. So we took the Greyhound bus, and just if we got tired and we needed to take a bath or whatever, that's when we'd stop and get them and catch the next bus coming through.
For $269, you could get on a Greyhound and go anywhere in the continental United States and southern Canada. For $269, we became migrants. We got on the Greyhound in Omaha. We went all the way across the West, visited relatives along the way, ended in San Francisco, went out to Alcatraz on a boat, then up the coast and into Vancouver, Canada, and then across the top of the country to Minnesota. And then we came home to St. Louis to wash our clothes, got back on a Greyhound, headed east. We ate fish out of the Pacific one week, and the following week we were eating fish out of the Atlantic. Our kids thought we were crazy. But we went down to North Carolina and came back home through the southern route. It was just a crazy trip. The suitcase completely broke down. It didn't make the trip, but we had a ball. We were on the road together for a month.
And still talking.
And sometimes we pulled our little blanket up and slept on the Greyhound. Other nights we stayed in a fine hotel, or the hotel the bus drivers all stayed in, or whatever was available.
Yeah, we were going into Virginia, and we didn't know where we were going to stay. And asked a bus driver. He said, I'll just take you to the hotel that we're staying in.
Sometimes I could kill him, but I'd never divorce him. And that, I think, kind of rings true. We were committed. And if ever we got the Irish temper versus the Southern ways, we worked it out. For Red and me, 60 years went by very fast. We were so blessed. Red and I we agreed on the major points, despite the Southern Midwestern difference. Everything on religion, politics, finances, children, we agreed on. I think that was important. And then we were so blessed because everything went well for us. We always had enough. We always had healthy kids. And we're very proud of their kids. And it's been a ride.
Well, I'm proud of every one of them. They excelled, every one. Well, no, I don't have a favorite. They all favorites to me.
Advice, I'd be reluctant to advise my grandchildren. They're all very brilliant, lovely people. But if I were to say something to it, stick it out. If times get a little hard, survive them. They'll get better.
We love one another. That's the main thing. And we decided to death do us part. That was our wedding vow. And we've lived up to that, and we'll continue. You're not going to always see things eye to eye, but the main things, when it comes right down to it, love one another. I'm Joe.
And I'm Marge.
And let's spend the rest of our days together.
I think we should. We've been married almost 60 years.
It's been a great ride, too.